Good evening and welcome to the first of two April Cabinet meetings this year, two for the price of one. Thank you for all being here today. I wanted to start, before we move on to the formal agenda, to say a couple of bits. Firstly, a big thank you to Nashaba for sharing some Eid sweets with us today, very delicious. And of course, we're wishing residents here in Medway and around the world tomorrow a happy Eid. This is, of course, a challenging time across the world, and we, in Medway, as we do, stand with others shoulder to shoulder, wanting those difficult international situations to get to a point of peace. We're all very clear on that. And secondly, just to update colleagues that earlier today, myself and Simon wrote to the Minister for Roads and Local Transport, Guy Opperman. This is on the issue of potholes. This is an increasing issue here in Medway, not unique to Medway, I think I should say, but certainly a problem for us as with every other upper tier authority, but we're most worried about Medway. So we've written to him to be very, very clear. The level of resources that we receive from central government are simply inadequate, that it is getting to a point where we feel there is a risk of compromising road safety if there isn't an intervention made, and we would welcome the opportunity to meet with him to look particularly at that issue. But of course, if we're there, we might raise a small matter of the Medway Tunnel, which of course we wrote to various ministers for roads whilst in opposition. So we're happy to continue to highlight where we think the funding mechanisms for the Medway Tunnel are at fault as well. So just to update colleagues, we will be putting that letter into the public domain, very, very clear and transparent, as this administration all intends to be, and we look forward to hearing back from the Minister. Let's move on to the formal agenda then. Are there any apologies for absence? I think we've got apologies from Councillor Marhill. Thank you very much. Anybody wishing to declare declarations of disclosable pecuniary interests and other significant interests? No, nobody's interested tonight. And are colleagues happy for me to sign the draft record of the decisions of the 12th of March? Agreed. Thank you very much. Let's then move on to the first substantive item. Reminder to colleagues, that's on the agenda supplement that was issued earlier this week. And that's on the issue of the Household Support Fund, the 2024-25 allocation, and also free school meals. I should say right at the start, from a constitutional perspective, of course, this was issued as an agenda item, but the report was issued with less than 5 clear working days because of the late information we received from central government. So obviously technically asking for that to be accepted as an urgent report so we can frankly make sure we start getting the money out the door as soon as possible. And you'll see the recommendations as laid out in paragraph 1.1, 1.2 and 1.3, delegating authority to myself and Phil Watts to make sure we get the money out the door, bluntly, and work closely with, in this case, the Department of Work and Pensions, as we have done throughout the scheme. I'd want to place on record here, firstly, my thanks particularly to Tracy for her motion, which garnered unanimous support at full council to continue this scheme. It was at risk. They left it till pretty much the last possible political moment to confirm it was being continued. So thanks, Tracy, for you bringing that forward. I was very pleased to sign a letter with 160 plus other council leaders of all political persuasions, coordinated by the Local Government Association, again, similarly calling for this to be extended. It's worth noting, of course, this is only an extension for 6 months. So one of the things, obviously, we'll be looking at carefully is what happens if this isn't extended. That could have impacts on issues like Christmas, of course. We do recognise that. So from that perspective, that is something which we will want to make sure we've got clear communications, clear contingencies in place, because the reality is this, that the issues that in many cases the Household Support Fund is supporting were there long before the Household Support Fund existed, and if it does cease in the autumn, those issues will continue to be there. Holiday hunger was a real and genuine issue, and it shouldn't be down to Premiership footballers or individual councillors to be making that call. We should be seeing fundamental shifts in that. We've got a good track record in Medway with working with partners. We'll continue to do that. As you see in the report there, it makes it clear how we move that forward. We've invested in some technology, which means we can get more money to more individuals and more families, particularly perhaps those who have never accessed support before. And I'd really encourage, once again, as I do on a pretty regular basis, if your household, if your family, if you as an individual are struggling at the moment, look at the council website. We've got lots of advice and guidance on there, including how to access the household support grant process locally from the fund that we receive from central government. I wouldn't normally highlight individual officers, but I do want to place on record my thanks to Gemma Gilly. Her and the team have done a brilliant job. Gemma is the head of benefits and welfare, financial welfare. She's done a great job at leading this throughout the term it's been in place. Again, working with partners and others to ensure that we are getting the money to those who need it the most. So again, working with organisations like Medway Food Bank and many, many others. So I'm sure some of us, of course, around the table spoke on this at council. I'm sure colleagues will perhaps have things to say, but certainly from my perspective, I'm really, really pleased that we're in a position to have this report, because 2 months ago that wasn't necessarily the case. So we're pleased it's here, and we'll use it as efficiently as this council has done, and will continue to do as long as it exists. Happy to open up to questions. Teresa?
Yes, thank you, Vincent. And I want to place my thanks on record to the Benefits and Welfare team. I've had some really lovely feedback, actually, from the public about the kind advice that they've had and the promptness and accuracy of the advice, which is really important. I also want to mention, if I can, please, everybody in the Food Partnership and our own public health team for leading that work and getting the household support fund and the things associated with it to families in need as quickly as possible. And as we speak today, we've got our Medway Go programme happening for the Easter holidays, with lots of children whose families are on low incomes being able to be fed a nice healthy meal and do activities they otherwise wouldn't be able to do. And I think some of that was encapsulated in your motion, Tracy, and the importance of continuing to be able to do that can't be compared. Having said that, it's not acceptable to only hear a few weeks before we run out of money that the fund is going to continue. It makes planning for everybody very difficult. And let's face it, the household support fund is there because of the crash that we had under Liz Truss. And every single month, another lot of families come into a position of approaching poverty because their mortgages go up, or their landlord's mortgages go up, and their landlord passes the increase onto them, and that is continuing. It hasn't gone away. So the household support fund, in conscience, the government should have it there, because actually I lay the blame very squarely at their door for putting us in the position where this fund is necessary. And we'll have a lot of work to do under what I hope very much will be a Labour government to change things and stop this begging bowl culture that we've been forced to develop to keep people going.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Tracy.
I'm really pleased that we've got the continuation of this household support fund. Thousands and thousands of households in Medway have benefited from it. And although the amount of each grant is actually small, it makes a huge difference to those families who are absolutely on the breadline. Very often these are working families who should not be in a position of having to ask for help. They should be in a position where they're able to look after themselves and not be coming to us. It's really important that we are able to help them, but as Teresa said, we need to be in a position where actually they are not being drawn into tax where they weren't previously, that they are being paid proper wages on decent contracts, on decent terms and conditions, so that they're able to be self-sufficient. But I am really pleased that while we are not in that position, we are still able to carry on helping them. So I was very pleased to see this continuing.
Thank you very much indeed, Tracy. Zoe, please.
Yes, pleased to see that it's carrying on, but sorry to see that it's only for another 6 months at the moment. But I think for me, one of the more important things that's referred to here is the longer term sustainability of that investment. For instance, making warmer homes by insulation and that sort of help. So I think it's really important to put an emphasis on that, because that will take people beyond that first 6 months.
Thank you very much indeed, Zoe. I can't see any other members, so thanks to everybody for their comments, and I wholeheartedly agree. Quite often on social media, when we've got organisations like One Big Family, you know, giving us a regular update on what they're doing, I'll say, it's brilliant that you're doing this. I wish you didn't have to exist. And it's kind of the same for this funding. I wish this funding didn't need to exist. But thank goodness it does at the moment, where families, and Tracy, you're absolutely right to highlight, probably the largest number of working families that have ever had to access a scheme of this nature. It's worth saying in conclusion that actually some of the processes have been further simplified as well, getting that feedback directly from people who have had to go through it. So the level of banking information has been simplified even further. We have got a balance. There's always a balance between protecting the public purse, but also making processes as accessible as possible. I don't want to see somebody put off applying for this funding because they feel it's a burden or bureaucratic. And I think we've got the balance just about right. And again, that's been made better by Gemma and the team. So on that basis, I'll move the 3 recommendations as laid out. Are those agreed? Thank you very much. That moves us on to item 5, which again, there is an update in the supplementary agenda from the feedback from Audit Committee. By the nature of some of these reports, the world's moved on a bit in some senses. So this is reporting back on quarter 3. But of course, we are now into quarter 1 of the following year. So it's worth saying, I think, just to give a bit of a live update. I think certainly if you look at the feedback we've received from audit, I mean, I think some of the questions there I would absolutely expect and recognise. I think Audit Committee has for a number of years done a good job in looking in this area, which sometimes can be seen as quite a technical process and report, but actually this is the council's investments. This is the council managing the money of the public. And again, in particular, there's certainly a situation where we see, as we've talked about here on a couple of occasions, the Lothbury Fund. At this point, it was unclear whether it was going to continue or not. We now know that's not going to be the case, so there will be an impact upon us, and we'll be doing further work to look at our other investments. We'll be doing that again on a whole cabinet approach, making sure we all have a look at what's going on to make sure we can see where the challenges may lie ahead. Certainly, as we've said elsewhere, and actually was kind of indirectly referred to on the last agenda item, a number of the things we see with the Treasury Management Report, of course, have been impacted by 50 days of a previous Prime Minister and their absolutely atrocious managing of the national Treasury process and the economic shambles that those, I say, heady 50 days, unfortunately, have left families with here in Medway. We've been out knocking on doors. I think somebody had a situation where someone's mortgage is going up by £900 a month. That's an individual household. If you think about you know, that for one household, and then take the situation we have with some of our economic structures from the council's perspective and our Treasury management, you can see how those interest rates can have quite devastating impact. So the report is there as seen. Thanks again, as always, to colleagues from Audit, and I just wanted to particularly highlight the recommendation at 1.2, which is around the risk, but also the ethical nature. I should mention that briefly as well. The ethical nature of our investment portfolio, you'll be seeing as we move forward, and we've said in the past around certain investments we wouldn't want to see with our pension fund. Of course, we share that with Kent, but the investment portfolio is very much directly within our hands. Happy to take any questions or comments at this stage. No, that's great. Thank you. Are those 2 recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much indeed. Let's move us then to the next agenda item. I think this is the agenda item that's got as long a title as the portfolio holder's job title. So I will hand this over to Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you, Vince. There's a common theme there. So this is a paper where we're being asked to approve the proposed Shared Prosperity Fund, Multiply and Rural England Prosperity Fund programmes for the forthcoming financial year. We're also being asked as a Cabinet to delegate authority to the Director of Place in consultation with myself to deliver those programmes. So I'll just speak briefly about each of them in turn. So the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, we have just under £1.2 million for the coming financial year. There will be a focus on improving skills, but we'll also be inviting general applications as we have done in previous years. We are planning a launch event in Rochester at the Corn Exchange in early May, and more details will be on the website shortly, and obviously we'll encourage as many businesses, community groups to come along and consider putting in an application. The paper talks about year 2 allocations, which were a really big success. So we were able to support 26 applications, but we had 68 applications come in, which shows there's a huge appetite for this funding and a lot of really great ideas and groups out there in Medway. Highlights for me, just to pull out a few, include supporting town centre events like the Chatham Chinese New Year, which I think is probably the largest celebration in the country of that particular festival outside of London, and increased footfall in the high street by about 25%, so it was a big success. Also like to highlight some of the feasibility funds of around £5,000, which were really helpful in helping our community groups to show that their ideas are viable, and then providing a platform for further additional external funding to actually turn those projects into reality. One of the examples that we're pursuing is obviously looking at whether a Chatham Business Improvement District is viable, and is something I know we're very keen to support if there is the support of the local businesses in Chatham as well. The scheme is also notable for helping community groups to become more financially sustainable, less reliant on council funding. So, for instance, last year we supported the Sun Pier House with their community ownership bid for the building they operate from, and we also supported the Chatham Intra-Cultural Consortium bid to become a charitable incorporated organisation. I just want to give a big thanks to the team of officers who helped sift through all of the applications last year and who I know are working really hard to prepare for this year's allocations. And also just want to highlight the breadth of projects that we supported, which is really detailed in the paper. So there's various creative projects, business support, including a programme of green grants, activities for young people, and help to tackle social issues like loneliness through the mutual aid road reps. The second one is Multiply, so this is just over £500,000 for the forthcoming year, focused on improving numeracy skills in adults who are aged over 19, who don't currently have a level 2 qualification in maths. The Year 3 investment plan that we're looking to do will build on a very similar one from last year that was really successful and which already has approval from the Department for Education. Last year, we were able to help over 750 people to improve their math skills through courses like bookkeeping, budget planning, and English as a second language math skills. So it's really important to helping people in Medway have the key life skills and to boost employability in the area as well. And then the final one is the Rural England Prosperity Fund. So the specific challenges that this funding stream aims to address are lower productivity rates, poorer connectivity, and poorer access to key services. So we've got an allocation of £400,000 to be spent by the end of March next year. And over the next 12 months, we're going to be looking to use the money to support small businesses on the Hoo Peninsula and also a rural community hub on the peninsula as well. So encourage colleagues to support the recommendations.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Any member? Tracy, please.
I was really pleased to read this report and to see this allocation of money. I want to particularly talk about the Multiply scheme. Dan Ratcliffe at Medway Adult Education has done a really fantastic job of getting the very best value for money from the allocation that's been given. As Lauren has said, this is to encourage adults to improve their numeracy. And we know that there can be a bit of stigma attached to adult learning, so it's really impressive how he's engaged those often hard to reach people, more than 750 people so far who've taken part in it. And he's done this by having targeted approaches towards these adults, using really innovative methods, including gardening, cooking, sewing, different things like this to try and engage and bring people on board. And it's really so important that adults who are not confident with their numeracy are able to improve in this way. It helps their employability. and it means they're more equipped to help their children with their learning. So I'm really delighted to read this report, and I look forward to seeing what's going to be achieved with it in the coming year. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Teresa?
Thank you, Lauren, and I commend the work that you've done on making sure that all of the different groups that you've described are able to join in with that process. And I think the report's helpful in allowing us to look back as well on some of the really good projects and the impact that they have made in the past. And I'll be looking forward to the launch event. And it's particularly pleasing to note that we're, you know, Medway is a place with urban and rural and suburban parts, and everyone's going to have an opportunity. Yes, maybe the Chancellor of the Exchequer could do with going on the Multiply programme. That might help him. But that is one of several really pragmatic, hands-on programmes that have changed people's lives. And I think it's very important that we recognise and acknowledge the work that council officers and partners in the voluntary sector have done to make that happen and to reach out for people. So long may it continue.
Thank you very much. Any other colleague? Before I come back to Lauren, I mean, I think this whole report is fantastic. And I think back to those strange 3 weeks in between the election and the annual council. And of those 3 weeks, the highlight was definitely the launch of year 2 of SPF. And you can see there dozens and dozens, both of applications that were successful, but I'm also aware of some of those that would be equally brilliant, but just the resources means not everybody can be successful, regrettably. So it's great that this is there. I really like the focus on skills this year as well. I think it's about, you know, spending that money in a way which has so many times positive impact for both individuals, organisations and our wider community. So, like Teresa, I'm really excited about the launch event this year. There's no election beforehand, we don't think. So, famous last words. So from that perspective, it will be great to see this administration and you personally, because I know the amount of time that you personally, not just from a political perspective, but actually, you know, going out to see individual organisations, talking to those who are thinking about putting in bids. And I can tell you, and I know there are other colleagues around the table, I suspect 68 will be a small number compared to the likely level of application. So I wish you a lot of luck with the process, you and the team, in getting those seen and examined. So, yeah, fantastic work by everyone. Lauren, back to you.
Thank you, and thank you all for your comments. Just on UK SPF, yeah, I recall the first event that we had, which I think was probably the first formal one under the new administration. And I think that really set the scene as well for the programme, because it was very much about saying to everyone in Medway, look, we aren't going to be a council that does things to you, we're going to be one that works with you. And I think that's really, really important and will continue throughout the work that we do. And also just something that I forgot to highlight, which is that I understand that the department, DLUC, is very interested in the approach that we've taken here in Medway. We've been quite innovative. It's a little bit more resource heavy for us, but it is much better about putting, you know, giving the opportunities to various kinds of groups, not just necessarily putting all the money in one particular pot, but inviting people to apply across all different areas and all different types of organisations, really to empower the local community, because we think they're best place to know what needs to happen in their area. So I think that this approach is a really great one, and hopefully one that we can continue beyond the next financial year as well.
Thank you very much. Are the recommendations agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. That moves us on to agenda item 7, the Joint Local Health and Wellbeing Strategy. Teresa, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. And for this one, lots of thanks. Thanks particularly to Leanne Farrock and to James Williams, our directors involved in really making this strategy come to life and ensuring that their staff come along with us, and particularly to David Whiting. This is a statutory document. It's something we have to have, and we have to have it for good reasons, because it's about improving the health and well-being of people in Medway. You're being asked tonight to approve the final version, but I do draw your attention to the strategy itself, because it tells a really good story of the way that it was put together. And I'm very grateful for the members of the public, 526 adults, I think, 148 children and young people, who all joined with us to give their views on what they think about the priorities. So healthier and longer lives for everyone, reducing poverty and inequality, safe, connected and sustainable places, connected communities and cohesive services. And I'm very grateful to all the members of the Health and Wellbeing Board, but particularly to you, Simon, for your enthusiasm in coming along to the board and making it very clear that there are connections to health and wellbeing with all of the other things we do, having good transport, having decent green spaces, making sure that our air is clean. So the health and wellbeing strategy connects up the local plan, it connects up the Medway Council plan, and it connects up all of the people who are working. And at the Health and Wellbeing Board, when we looked at this, we thought very carefully with all of the partners there about what everybody present needs to do to make this happen. It doesn't just die on the paper now. This is a live document. It's monitored all the time to see whether the measures in it are actually having an impact. We've got brand new ward profiles available on the website for people here and anybody watching, so that you can have a look at the health of everybody in your community and think about the things that need to be done. And I'm very aware still, and particularly for men, we've got this huge life expectancy inequality of 10 years. That's been there for a long time, and we've got to change that. And it's unusual with our comparator authorities and in the South East as a whole. So it's something as a particular priority, and I'm grateful to Nashaba and for everybody who's getting a special focus on Gillingham, because in Gillingham South Ward particularly, and in Gillingham North Ward, we've got people with very poor health, and we want to change that. They deserve to fulfill their potential like everybody else. And so that there are lots of things within this strategy that will allow us to work across the council to make people feel better, to make sure that they enjoy their lives as best they can and live their kind of longest and best lives. And through the health determinants research collaboration, those building blocks of health, we're looking all the time for projects that the research can help us do that can enrich and change this, and looking all the time as well for staff across the council to get involved in that research and development and enrich their jobs and get them thinking about the way that the work we do in all departments can improve health and wellbeing. So I'm really excited that the strategy is in place. It sits under the Integrated Care Board's strategy as well and fits in with that. The two are co-terminus, and we look to the ICB and the partnership, which I'll be chairing, for the forthcoming municipal year events, to make sure that we get our fair share of resource to get these things happening. So I commend it to everybody. I hope that you'll support it, and I look forward to reporting back on all of the elements of the strategy through the Health and Wellbeing Board and in other ways.
Thank you very much, Teresa. An excellent document, and again showing that this cabinet, this council, is working with the public. You know, over 700 contributions from our residents, young and old. Any member? Simon, please.
Yeah, thanks very much, Vincent. Thank you, Teresa, and thank you to the whole of the health team for producing this really important report. I mean, Teresa's sort of made reference to the connections to the wider Medway strategies that we've got. And in particular, I just wanted to note priority theme 4, the safe, connected and sustainable places, and how that links directly. And there's a lovely quote here from one of the people on the focus group, which says, "I started cycling a bit more in the last couple of years, but you know you don't always feel safe on roads." And that's very true, actually. Our roads are over-congested and they're difficult to cycle along. Mention was made of the pothole issue. Imagine if you're a cyclist, and we're calling on changes for that from central government. But equally, part of our active travel group, the health teams are on board with us in that group. They come along to it, to all the meetings involved there, in order to encourage a lot more people to walk and cycle around Medway. And we're through the walking, cycling initiatives now that we've got underway. We've just finished a consultation on that. We've got a plan, the LC WIP plan, which is coming out very shortly this summer, will hopefully bring about much greater improvements to the ability for people to feel safe when they go out on their bikes, or feel encouraged to walk a lot more. We've got a lot more travel initiatives around, say, school streets and such like as well, to encourage a lot more walking rather than jumping in a car at every opportunity. So the links are there about a healthier communities and healthier lives for everybody, particularly in light of the obesity figures that have come out today, which are pretty sad as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Simon. Any other member? I mean, certainly before I come back to you, Teresa, and picking up on Simon's point, that I think this health and wellbeing strategy is another example, a good, positive example of the one Medway approach, recognising that any one solution, any one issue can't sit in a silo, that there's got to be that joined up collaborative approach. And I think this is another excellent report that shows that happening in practice, and not least also laid out in a way which people can understand what we need to do, what we're going to do next. You know, very simple language which makes it accessible to many, many people. So yeah, job well done. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Vince. And, you know, the team have worked really hard to do just that, to make this a readable and relatable strategy that people can understand and see themselves in. And like Simon, if I draw your attention to something on page 21 of the strategy, where we're asking people, you know, what would they like to do? And someone who helped us with this said, I want to do things that tempt people away from the screen, get the whole family involved in fitness, rebuild family social connections. You know, the people of Medway know what needs to be done. And so what this strategy is doing is helping them, pointing them in the right direction and giving them real tangible things that they can do and get involved in to improve their health. So there's that element of partnership and responsibility within this strategy. So, like I say, we're not going to let it die on the pages. It will be live and, and revisited and, if necessary, changed. If we find that we're doing well on one thing and less well on another, that's how we'll be working through it. So I thank everybody for their support on that.
Thank you, Teresa. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you very much. Let's move on to a very helpful next item, the power of the crowd. Teresa, back to you.
Thank you. Still love the title, The Power of the Crowd, and this year's report focuses on the way that we can work with our partners and our whole community to, again, improve our health. And there have been some really good changes. So this report speaks to the health and wellbeing strategy as well, and to the Integrated Care Board, and it highlights some of the really good things that have been done, working with our partners in the community, working with our partners in the voluntary sector, and really tapping in to that reservoir of community assets and potential and talents and ideas. And in particular, just mentioning a few things, we are making progress on obesity. Smoking actually has plummeted, which is really, really good news. There's very good take-up of the strength and balance classes that are free across the whole of our community, helping people to improve their strength and balance and prevent them from falling over and give them confidence to go out there. Our Healthy Walks programme, which is a fantastic programme and doesn't just rely on council officers to lead. There's lots of members of the community leading those walks in all kinds of places, and we've got a new programme coming through for the spring. There's been some fantastic work helped by our diversity forum on hypertension heroes, so that we've actually got in one of the mosques now a blood pressure monitoring machine and a treadmill funded through some grant funding and some fundraising by that particular group, and a whole lot of people from our diverse communities who are more likely to suffer from blood pressure coming forward to get their blood pressure under control. And some really good work with the infant feeding strategy, where we've got peer supporters helping people to breastfeed, and cafes and other meeting places showing that they're breastfeeding friendly places. So the report, it's evaluative, it's got loads of statistics in it, but it tells a story as well of the way that the power of the crowd, how working together we can achieve things much more effectively than if we do it on our own.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any member? No, I think, let's say, it's a great report, and again, a very helpful basis to see where we've been and where we're going. I think that's historically, and it continues to be the case, the public health documents in Medway, I think, are some of the strongest documents that we provide for the ability for the public to engage in some of those issues, which are real and genuine for them, as you highlight, Teresa, in some of the things which are happening as we speak in our community right now. So absolutely commend this and support you in this. Back to you for any final comments.
Yeah, thank you. Just to say, I was really pleased at the end of the year to spend a day with our Medway champions, many of whom have been champions quite a long time, actually, but they're still full of enthusiasm and wanting to make a contribution to help other people live healthy and good lives. And then on the afternoon of that day, I attended the Better Medway Awards, and there, you know, we heard about all of the groups that are encapsulated in this report who are doing things on their own behalf, on their own initiative, some of them coming up with ideas that are, you know, receive a friendly reception, and we always try, particularly the public health team, to respond to ideas that people have for what they can do, and we will continue to do that, so that, you know, even in these tough times when we've been fighting for resources in hand-to-hand combat, actually, you know, this does show that we can still achieve some really good things, and with better resources, do even more.
Thank you. Put myself on mute. Are the recommendations agreed? Thank you very much. Next item, cumulative impact assessment. Tris, over to you.
Thank you very much, Vince. And this is an important document. So the Licensing Act in 2003 governs the sale and supply of alcohol in England and Wales. And this policy specifically and only covers alcohol provision, despite other comments that are in the public domain that it should be expanded to include other areas. That is the sole area of focus of this position. And this policy has 4 key objectives: the prevention of crime and disorder in areas of alcohol sales, therefore linking to public safety in those areas, the prevention of public nuisance that might be associated with alcohol sales, and then lastly, the protection of young people and children from harm as well in relation to alcohol sales. And we're required as a licensing authority every 4 to 5 years to review our current set of policies in consultation with the major statutory agencies, so police, fire brigade and others, to look to see where we might need to consider additional policies to prevent harm to the community and to those within the community. As you can see, so first of all, I'd like to thank Bhupinder and his team in the licensing for collating all of this information. It is no small effort to go to the consultation and to get in the depth of information needed to make any changes is significant. But you can see in the appendices the significant quantities of data that we've received from the police specifically, but also others around their requirements. And broadly speaking, in 3 of the 4 town centres, there are no major changes proposed. Licensing will remain, off licences will still require review, whereas other sales will not. There is a recommendation from some, the police, to look at on-site sales in Rochester High Street in particular, because that is noted as a site of significant accumulation of people on Friday, Saturday nights in particular, and that has been noted in this policy as well. So, in short, you can also see in the appendices the changes in Appendix E associated with the new policy that we are proposing to go forward. There is significant amounts of data in here which show that people are happy with what the previous policy was, but there might be, in the case of Rochester, some extensions required. So I'm happy to present this for consideration. It is a statutory responsibility that we look at this document and pass this evening. It has also just finally been through, the draft copy of this has been through the licensing committee, an independent body, and the chair and others commend this policy for our consideration this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tris, any member? I mean, one thing I would comment on, because it is worthy of comment, recognising perhaps where we are with other levels of consultation, is I would say in part that the relatively low level of consultation response to this is because actually it's so well embedded in our community now. You know, a number of residents were involved at the very start of this process. So although perhaps the consultation numbers are lower than we've seen perhaps in the past, I think in part that's because actually people have got trust in this process. They know it works and they effectively expect it to continue, which, depending on the decision we're about to take tonight and then subsequently at full council, obviously that will hopefully be the case. I'll certainly be supporting it both here and there. Any other member? If Teresa, please, yes.
Yeah, I mean, thank you for this report, Tris, and I think reading into the detail of the report, it's important that we take note of the way that people feel about the misuse of alcohol and other antisocial behaviour and the way that it blights their lives and makes people feel frightened, as they've said, coming out of their homes, it feels like some areas are a very different place in the night to the way that they are in the day. And we've got a responsibility to manage that. You know, this is not draconian measures for the sake of it. This is to encourage people to behave properly and make everybody feel that if they want to go out and enjoy themselves, they can do that safely and, you know, without fear or favour. So I think to that extent, it's an important document. And although the responses, yes, Vince, are relatively low, there are some very insightful responses contained within the document that tell us how people feel about the places they live and the way that the things that the strategy is trying to change impact their lives.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Nashaba, please.
Thank you, Vince, and thanks, Tristan, for bringing this forward. And just to say that we'll be supporting it tonight. I think it's, you know, Teresa's just picked up on some of the experiences that residents have and may have when it comes to the sale of alcohol. And I think particularly in Gillingham, this is really welcome because we do have some challenges that we're looking at, and those are that have been picked up throughout the report. So it certainly makes a difference to have this in place and be able to kind of monitor against it, but also ensure that the enforcement is there. And I think that's the key to this. And I know local residents will be happy to see that this is still being brought forward in the way that it's been suggested in the report. And I think, as Teresa mentioned, understanding some of the challenges that we face when it comes to the sale of alcohol, but also the wider impact that has on antisocial behaviour and how that then makes local communities feel and the knock-on impact is really, really important. And this is not the whole puzzle in terms of how we tackle some of those challenges, but it's certainly one piece of the puzzle that's really important. So very happy to support that.
Thank you very much, Nashaba. I can't see anybody else, so Tris, back to you.
Yeah, so thank you, and I do welcome the contributions from members. And it's worth saying that in other areas where cumulative impact policies are put together, they do take a very area-specific focus. If you look at Westminster, for instance, because Westminster is a more urban area with significant differences between different urban communities, you can go into a lot more detail around the very specifics. But this policy has taken into account Kent Police's view on where they see alcohol consumption to be a concern, and we have listened to their views in particular. That isn't to say that this is not an iterative process. So over the next several years, we will have to take a look at our licensing policy as this one is delivered. If there are changes and further policies that need to be reviewed, it could be the case that we expand the provision in 4 or 5 years' time. But I think this is a sensible, it is data-driven, and Kent Police are happy with what they're seeing from us. So I think we're happy to be led by them, and I commend everyone's views. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Obviously, colleagues, you'll be aware that we are proposing this for full council. So obviously, we are recommending that to them. Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Let's move us on to the next agenda item, which is over to Tracy for the very longly titled School Admissions Arrangements. Over to you.
Cabinet, in fact, approved the 2025 admission schemes on the 19th of December 2023, but because there have been changes to the Medway test model, the school's admissions team is seeking a variation to the Medway test results publication date from the 8th of October to the 16th of October 2024. And this is because the changes to the Medway test papers for September of this year mean that the test provider are going to have an extra paper to mark for every entrant, and so can't turn the results around in that time frame. So the recommendation is to agree to this variation to make sure that we're able to fulfil our obligations on the published test results date, so that we avoid causing parents delays and disappointment if we are late with that. So the recommendation is to change the date.
Thank you very much, Tracy. Any member? A fairly straightforward technical report, really. Happy to agree to recommendation? Thank you very much. Let's then move on to agenda item 11, one of the two starts of the procurement process. And Teresa, over to you.
Thank you. So you're being asked to approve the start of the procurement of the assessment bed service, but a lot of work has already gone into this in identifying why we need the assessment beds, where they might be, and what impact having them will have on our ability to make sure that people get the right care at the right time. So an assessment bed is a place where someone can go, whether they've just been discharged from hospital or whether they've had a different experience at home that has required a change in their care, with an emphasis on being able to see what their needs are in the future and how they might need to be go through a reablement program, go through a rehabilitation program, to ensure that we're making sure that everybody who is able to can live a life independently at home, and for those who are not able to, that they actually go to the right place at the right time. Obviously, this involves an enormous amount of partnership working. I'm pleased that the ICB has recognised the need to continue to fund assessment beds, and they will make a huge difference to our social work and occupational therapies teams to make sure that the people that we're looking after are in the right place and that we are able to monitor them as they go forward. So I ask everybody to allow for the start of the process, and obviously as time goes on you'll be asked to approve the procurement when it happens.
Thank you very much, Teresa. Any colleague? No? Is the recommendation agreed? Thank you. That takes us to the final agenda item for tonight, and I think this is going to be Adam.
That's right. Thank you, Vince. This is like agenda item 12, and it's a gateway one, like procurement commencement, and this time it's for send transport, and we're proposing to go for option 3B, which is the dynamic purchasing system. It's quite a large contract in terms of first of all, the length of the number of years which the tenders are being invited to put forward to. It's going to be for over 6 years, amounting to 73.4 million, which is a sizable amount of money. So that's going to be on the basis of a 4-year period with an option to extend for a further 2 years. It's about £9.5 million per annum. So basically, Cabinet's being asked to approve commencement of the procurement of the send transport contract as per the preferred option 3B, dynamic purchasing system. This system will remove the entry barrier for new suppliers, encourage competition, and also offer cost savings, as well as address the capacity concerns that have been experienced in the last 2 years of the previous contract. So this previous contract continues until July, and obviously, as it's a statutory service, we must make sure that we've got everything in place starting from next September. So there are various safeguards there that all the providers are having to put forward. Obviously, safeguarding is a key one. Customer service is a critical area because we're talking about very needy children and young people. And I'd like to recommend through you, and I can invite any questions, that we approve option 3B. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Any colleague? I say this is a substantial amount of taxpayers' money, so it is right that we go through this process. And I think if colleagues and the wider public, because there'll be a keen interest, I'm sure in this, they will see that actually I think if you compare the options available to us, I think this is the most sensible approach, and I'm very happy to support it tonight. Back to you, Adam, for any final comments.
Yes, I'd like to thank all the officers who have been working very hard on this, and actually letting this is down to category management, but the ongoing management of it will be through Paul Clark and his team, including my namesake Christian name, Adam Booker. We do have a few Adams around Medway Council now, but yes, it's a vital service, and look forward to it going smoothly. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Adam. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. That closes tonight's meeting at 7:48. Thanks.